Suffering is something we all experience. It comes in many forms: physical pain, emotional distress, disappointment, loneliness. No one can avoid suffering entirely, no matter how rich, powerful, or wise they may be. But instead of fearing suffering or trying to escape from it, we must first understand what it is. Suffering is not simply pain or sadness. It is the resistance we feel when life does not go as we wish. Imagine a man walking in the rain. If he accepts that the rain is falling, he can simply walk. But if he complains about the rain, hoping for sunshine, he suffers. The rain is the same, but his experience changes depending on his mind. Many people believe suffering is something that happens to them. They think suffering comes from difficult situations, from other people, or from bad luck. But suffering is not just an outside force. It is also something that arises inside us. Two people may experience the same event, but one suffers deeply while the other remains calm. Why? Because suffering depends on how we respond to the world, not just on the world itself. We tend to push suffering away. We distract ourselves with entertainment, work, or social media. But ignoring suffering does not make it disappear. It waits in the background, growing stronger. When we finally face it, we may feel overwhelmed. But if we learn to meet suffering with awareness, we begin to understand it. We see that suffering is not an enemy. It is a signal, a teacher. Some may ask, why must we suffer? Why can't life be free from pain? But suffering is a part of being human. Without it, we would not grow. Just as fire strengthens steel, hardship strengthens the heart. Instead of seeing suffering as a punishment, we can see it as an opportunity to look deeper into ourselves. By recognizing suffering, we take the first step toward peace. We no longer run away from it, but instead, we learn from it. We begin to see that suffering is not something we must fear. It is simply a part of life, like the changing of the seasons. When we understand this, suffering loses its power over us. If we want to understand suffering, we must ask, where does it come from? At first, it may seem that suffering comes from the outside world. Difficult people, painful experiences, or bad luck. But if we look more closely, we see that suffering often arises from within us. One of the greatest causes of suffering is desire. We want things to be a certain way. We wish for success, love, recognition, comfort. These desires themselves are not wrong, but when we become attached to them, suffering begins. Imagine a person who desires a perfect life, free from problems. The moment something goes wrong, they feel frustrated, even angry. Their suffering is not only from the situation, but from their expectation that life should always be smooth. Another cause of suffering is aversion, the rejection of what we do not like. We push away discomfort, sadness, or failure. We try to escape from things that make us uneasy, but life is unpredictable. No matter how hard we try, we cannot avoid pain forever. When we resist what is happening, we suffer more. If we could let go of resistance, we would feel less pain. Impermanence is another truth we struggle with. Everything in life changes. People grow old, relationships shift, possessions break, and circumstances change. Yet we try to hold on to things as if they will last forever. We fear loss, and when change comes, we feel pain. But the nature of life is change. If we understand this deeply, we can begin to loosen our grip on things that will inevitably pass. Suffering is also created by our thoughts. The mind constantly tells stories, worries about the future, regrets about the past. A person sitting in a peaceful room can still suffer if their mind is full of anxiety. The suffering is not from the room, but from the thoughts they entertain Understanding the root causes of suffering is powerful. It shows us that suffering is not an outside force controlling us. It is something we participate in, often without realizing it. This means we also have the ability to lessen it. By recognizing desire, aversion, and the fear of impermanence, we take the first steps toward freedom. Suffering may not disappear completely, but when we understand its causes, it begins to lose its hold on us. Many of us believe that if we work hard enough, plan carefully, or make the right choices, we can control life. We think we can shape our future exactly as we wish. But no matter how much effort we put in, life remains unpredictable. Things happen that we do not expect. People change, accidents occur, plans fail. When reality does not match our expectations, we suffer. The desire for control comes from fear. We fear uncertainty because it makes us feel vulnerable. If we could control everything, we believe, we would be safe. But this is an illusion. No one can control the world completely, not even the most powerful people. A wealthy person cannot prevent aging. A skilled doctor cannot stop death. A loving parent cannot always protect their child. Trying to control the uncontrollable only leads to frustration. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you grip it tightly, it slips through your fingers. The harder you try to hold on to it, the faster it disappears. But if you keep your hand open, the sand remains. Life is the same. The more we try to force things to be a certain way, the more suffering we create. When we let go of the need to control everything, we find peace. Some people think letting go of control means giving up, but that is not true. It means accepting life as it is, rather than how we want it to be. It means understanding that we can influence some things, but not everything. We can plant seeds, but we cannot control the rain. We can do our best, but we cannot guarantee success. When we stop trying to control everything, we become more flexible. We are less disturbed by unexpected changes. We stop blaming ourselves or others when things do not go as planned. Instead of resisting life, we learn to move with it. The world is uncertain. It always has been, and it always will be. But this uncertainty is not something to fear. It is part of what makes life rich and meaningful. When we accept that control is an illusion, we stop struggling against reality. And in that acceptance, we discover a deeper kind of freedom. One that does not depend on controlling life, but on flowing with it. Once we understand that suffering comes from within, our desires, our resistance, our fear of uncertainty, we can begin to change our relationship with it. But how do we actually break the cycle of suffering? How do we live with less pain and more peace? The first step is awareness. Many people go through life without realizing how their own thoughts and emotions create suffering. They believe suffering comes only from the outside world. But when we observe our minds, we begin to see the patterns. We notice how a single thought, "I should have done better. This isn't fair. What if something goes wrong?" can create unnecessary pain. Just seeing this clearly is already a step toward freedom. Another important step is learning to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Emotions are like waves in the ocean. They rise and fall. When we resist them, they grow stronger. But if we allow them to come and go, they lose their power over us. When sadness arises, we can acknowledge it without drowning in it. When anger appears, we can see it for what it is, rather than letting it control our actions. Shifting our perspective is also key. Many people see suffering as something purely negative, something to avoid. But suffering can also be a teacher. It shows us where we are holding on too tightly, where we are afraid, where we are not at peace with reality. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" We can ask, what can I learn from this? Of course, breaking the cycle of suffering does not mean that pain will disappear from life. There will always be challenges, disappointments, and losses. But our relationship with suffering changes. We no longer see it as an enemy, but as something we can work with. We develop the ability to hold pain without letting it consume us. This process is not instant. It takes patience and practice. But every moment of awareness, every small shift in perspective, brings us closer to inner peace. We do not need to escape suffering. We only need to understand it. And through understanding, suffering begins to lose its hold on us. Many people believe that happiness means eliminating suffering. They think that if they avoid pain, escape difficulties, or remove all problems from life, they will finally be at peace. But suffering is not something we can simply erase. No matter how much we try to control life, suffering will find its way to us. The question is not how to get rid of suffering, but how to live with it. Suffering is like a storm. When we fight against it, we get caught in the wind and rain, struggling to stay upright. But when we learn to stand in the storm without resistance, we find strength. We may still feel the wind, but it does not shake us as much. We may still feel the rain, but we do not drown in it. One way to live with suffering is to stop seeing it as an enemy. When we resist suffering, we add more pain on top of it. For example, when we experience sadness, we might think, I shouldn't feel this way, or why am I so weak? These thoughts make suffering heavier. But when we accept suffering as part of life, we stop making it worse. We say to ourselves, this is difficult, but it is okay. This is part of being human. Another way to live with suffering is to find balance. It is easy to become lost in pain, believing that it will last forever. But nothing lasts forever. Just as joy comes and goes, so does suffering. When we remember this, we do not become hopeless in difficult times. We understand that suffering is not permanent. It will pass, just as everything else does. Suffering can also teach us how to grow. A tree that faces strong winds develops deeper roots. A person who goes through hardship can develop deeper wisdom. When we stop running away from suffering and instead face it with openness, we gain strength that we never knew we had. Living with suffering does not mean enjoying pain or wishing for hardship. It means accepting life as it is, rather than constantly wishing for it to be different. It means understanding that pain and joy, loss and gain, difficulty and ease are all part of the same journey. When we stop fighting against suffering, we find a deeper kind of peace, one that is not based on avoiding pain, but on embracing life as a whole. If suffering is a part of life, does that mean we are trapped in it forever? No. While we cannot eliminate all pain, we can free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is a natural experience. We lose people we love. Our bodies grow old. Challenges arise. But suffering is how we respond to pain. It is the extra weight we place on ourselves through resistance, fear, and attachment. True freedom does not come from changing the outside world to match our desires. It comes from changing how we relate to life itself. When we understand that suffering comes from within, we realize that we also have the power to release it. One way to walk this path is through deep understanding. The more we recognize the nature of suffering, its causes, its patterns, and its impermanence, the less power it has over us. We stop reacting blindly to pain and begin to see it with clarity. When something difficult happens, instead of asking, "Why me?" we can ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I meet this moment with openness instead of resistance?" Another way to find inner freedom is through acceptance. This does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means letting go of the struggle against reality. When we stop fighting what is, we find space to respond with wisdom rather than fear. A river does not resist the rocks in its path. It flows around them. In the same way, we can move with life rather than against it. Wisdom is not about avoiding suffering, but about seeing it clearly. It is about realizing that no matter what happens, we have a choice. We can carry suffering like a heavy burden, or we can meet it with understanding and openness. We can see that even in difficult times, there is still beauty, still love, still meaning. The path to inner freedom is not about reaching a perfect state where suffering no longer exists. It is about walking through life with a mind that is not controlled by suffering. It is about meeting each moment as it comes, without fear, without resistance. When we do this, suffering no longer holds us captive. We become free, not because life is without pain, but because we have learned to live fully, no matter what it brings. Suffering is not something we can completely remove from life, but it is something we can understand. When we see its true nature, we no longer need to fear it. We no longer need to fight against it. Instead, we learn to live with it, walk alongside it, and even grow because of it. Each of us has the ability to find peace, not by escaping from suffering, but by changing our relationship with it. The more we recognize how suffering arises through desire, resistance, and the illusion of control, the more we can release its hold on us. We begin to experience life as it is, rather than as we think it should be. This does not mean that suffering disappears. There will still be difficulties, challenges, and losses. But when we stop adding extra weight to our pain, we become lighter. We find strength, not in avoiding hardship, but in meeting it with wisdom and openness. The journey toward inner freedom is not a straight path. It is a process of learning, unlearning, and seeing more clearly. There is no need to rush. Each small moment of awareness, each gentle shift in perspective, brings us closer to peace. Before I close, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to those who have supported this channel through your likes, your comments, your subscriptions, and your super thanks. I am deeply appreciative. Your kindness and engagement mean a great deal. It is a reminder that we are all connected in this journey, learning and growing together. If these reflections have resonated with you, I hope you will continue exploring these teachings in your own way. May you find clarity in moments of uncertainty, strength in times of challenge, and peace in the midst of change. Thank you for sharing this time with me.